Welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing current players. Today, we are looking at the finale of Survivor 45, Living the Survivor Dream. And man, would I love to live the Survivor Dream. I'm one of your co-hosts, Josh Wessler, joined today by Ryan Stacy and Derek Kubicek.
It's our favorite holiday of the year. It's Survivor finale night. It only comes twice a year, and it delivered. It delivered. This was an emotionally wild episode. I really like this finale. Derek?
For all of the valid criticisms that we gave the edit and production choices with respect to the edit this season, they did some really wonky and wild things. The finale absolutely delivers 100%. It was unclear maybe how the early portions were going to go, and I really enjoyed that. Especially because if you go and check out our social media, there was a fairly big consensus about what people thought was going to happen. And nothing ended up being clear. I loved it. And I think I can safely say my favorite of the new era, but we'll talk about that more later.
Yep. Let's get into spoilers. Come on. If you're listening to this and you haven't watched the finale yet, what are you doing?
Yeah, we've given you ample opportunity to pause the podcast, put us in your queue, listen to us later.
If this randomly came on with autoplay for some odd reason, leave.
Turn it off. Crash your car. Whatever you need to do to get this to stop playing. Don't actually crash your car. 3, 2,
Stop.
1. Spoiler alert. We have another winner of Survivor, D. Valadares, I think is how you pronounce it. Yeah, we have a great winner in D. Really fun winner. I think I can speak for all of us when we're like, last time we all said D was going to win hands down. And it wasn't as clear-cut as we thought it was going to be at all. Yes, we were right, but it was much more fun than any of us could have predicted.
And what's funny is, once again, we could rely on the poor gameplay of a few players to almost fall absolutely booty backwards into the right move. Because, of course, early on, we're going to get discussion about taking out D, but not because she's the biggest threat left in the game, because she happens to be involved in a show. Like, the fact that they managed to consistently stumble into the wrong reasons for doing things from a GameBot perspective, because, I mean, when you're out there, all the reasons for doing things are the right reason to you, but if you want to win the game, I mean, that's kind of why we're here, to be a little game body.
Yeah, you need to look at more than just your perspective.
You need to take a page out of Drew's book. Be self-aware. Know where you are, when it's time to flip, when it's time to cut bait, when it's time to make a move. It's not all about being Jake, but I loved it. Josh, how about you?
I love this finale. It was a great cap to a fantastic post-merge of this season. We've been going, I think, full speed since the merge happened, and this finale did not disappoint. It didn't even actually go exactly how I expected it to, even though I almost exactly predicted everything that happened this episode. If you go back and listen
this season, sir.
You
You predicted everything this season.
I mean, you for sure predicted the path of one player earlier than anyone that I saw out in the social media sphere.
I mean, I wasn't going to bring it up yet, but yeah, I'm definitely going to end up gloating about a certain someone's character.
This is going to be the Let's Give Josh All the Props episode of the podcast.
I don't get it often.
He doesn't get it often. He doesn't deserve it often, but tonight he does.
Absolutely.
More than any other Castaway consultant on this podcast.
Thank you.
Or any other podcast.
I feel like this season I finally am able to actually have a little bit of validity, and people, when they're listening to the podcast, Derek is very well spoken, Ryan is a complete Survivor nerd, and then there's me. I forget things very often. Which is very ironic for being the memorability correspondent.
Half the reason we gave you memorability correspondent, because it's awesome.
I'm not very good, thinking of with a wide vocabulary or anything like that. So, at least I have this.
Derek may have his fancy book learning, but Josh has something.
Josh has his Survivor 45.
Damn right.
Predictions.
Hey, you know what? Josh has got the clairvoyance.
Should we jump into this episode?
Absolutely.
All right. So, Final 5. We're back at camp after Dee's horrible betrayal of Austin, and Austin immediately gets over it because he's in love.
Simp.
I mean, I don't want to go that far. It's got such a negative connotation.
And yet,
Simping doesn't have to be bad.
But we all know the connotation, so I'm going to stop short of saying that. Austin does need to wake up and realize he can't go to the end with D. I will say, the edit maybe pulled the wool over our eyes a little bit with exactly how big of a threat the jury deemed Austin, because I think we were all kind of coming in thinking if Austin goes to the end with D, that's a clean sweep, or at least close to it.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of Drew, which makes sense. We're going to end up getting a 3-5, which, by the way, is still an L. We're still right, just not as right as we thought we were. But of course, we didn't have all the information, but we did have enough.
Ultimately, even with Austin's simpiness aside, he's still super likable. He's still a really solid player and had solid strategy. He just had that one big hole.
He was one move away from winning this game.
Really, yeah.
And, depending on where Jake goes, he's one vote away. I mean, depending on who you look at who voted for D, I would almost argue Emily, because Emily was really close with Austin.
Yeah. And Emily was probably the hardest on D at Final Tribal.
Yep. But then blew up Austin's spot by accident, on purpose, we don't know. But really blew up his spot. But yeah, so Austin and D, they're still together. No word yet on whether they're still together post-show.
Oh, I was going to say, did something come out?
No breaking news yet at this hour. I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow in exit interviews.
By the time this podcast is posted, we might know.
We might know. But Austin does say, he's like, probably would have given the advantage amulet to Drew if I knew. So, good move. Mm-hmm. Austin, you're saying all the right things. Vote her out.
Probably vote her out. This is going to be a bigger sin later in the episode.
Katurah wants to break these two up. They're a pair, she's just noticing.
Wow.
So I made reference to this. If anyone has seen that episode of Family Guy where Meg runs out, I heard a noise. What's going on? Is everything okay? And then Peter just stares at her. And then smokes her with a baseball bat and says, Meg, you startled me. Are you kidding me? Like, this has been so incredibly obvious.
and then in pure Katurah and everyone else, later on, fast forward all the way to after Final Tribal, and we're doing our little Q&A reunion. Basically, everyone's trying to say we saw this the entire time. And I don't know if we got confirmation during the season of people not noticing, but Katurah for sure was making comments, this one in particular, about not really seeing this coming at all. So, it kind of goes back on anything she says earlier in the episode.
She saw them holding hands in a helicopter.
Yeah.
Come on.
Maybe that's your sign, Katurah.
Here's your sign.
I think this is just more evidence that Katurah is not very good at Survivor.
Yeah.
All right. A box is going to show up on the beach. And we're going to have really fun challenge. Josh has things to say. So it's the challenge where you have to run a distance to a series of items, count them all up, run back, and put the numbers into a combination. You got to get them right. And they're spread all around the island, and you're playing for an advantage in the immunity challenge. We've seen this a few times in the new era. So to go ahead and pitch to, since Survivor 45 is over, we're going into the off season. The next thing you will hear from us, the previously recorded Survivor Kage-On Rewind. We recorded this back in July and August. It's ready to go, but we're just going to release it in the off season, but we recorded it before 45.
So speaking of Josh's clairvoyance, I was also referring to this. Josh, why don't you take it away?
What is going on? So stay tuned because it's a great podcast. Our rewinds are always great. This particular season that's going to be coming out soon was super fun to record. But one thing in particular that was mentioned during it was this challenge and how fun it was watching through on Kage-On and everyone just scrambling and going and it taking forever during that season. And I think, without going back and listening to my exact words, I was basically saying they need to bring this back for the new era. Lo and behold, just a few months later, how did I know that this was going to happen? But it is here and it's back and I loved it. I was so excited when this came up.
This is a great challenge. Jake is going to end up winning this. And he's like, running is not my thing. And I'm like, Jake, I relate, buddy.
Former cross-country star Ryan Stacy. By the way, famously, I'm the only one on the podcast who never was in cross-country. Fun fact for the listeners.
Yeah, I was in cross-country, believe it or not.
You loved running hills because you're a sociopath.
I do. Running hills is my favorite practice. It's the one thing in cross-country.
Psychopath.
It's the only thing in cross-country.
That's my least favorite thing in cross-country.
And that's what everyone tells me. The only thing I was good at was hills. I could do hills all day. I love running up hills. Everything else.
Thanks, Kate
blows.
Bush.
I mean, I can tell by his arguments. He just loves running up hills all day.
You know what? You want a hot take? The cover version by the band Placebo is infinitely better than the Kate Bush
How
version.
dare you?
Come at me. Infinitely.
False.
Infinitely. It's not even close. Anyway, Jake wins because he is slow and steady, and he makes sure he's accurate because he's like, I'm not fast, but I'll get it right the first time. And the way he does this is brilliant. So he counts up the items, and the first one is 18. So he remembers this by the winners of whatever season, in this case 18. He's like, okay, JT, 18 JT, and then I can't remember what item it was, but the next one was 25. Denise is like bamboo, she's sturdy. And the last one was coconuts.
43.
There was 43 of them. Gabler's little nuts. That's how I remembered it. JT, Denise, Gabler, the seasons they won, and I'm like, Jake, I wanted Jake to win already. And this just like pushed it over the top.
Well, and by the way, to tie this to Token Chains a little bit, isn't this a similar challenge to where Fishback totally broke the challenge by like assigning a phone number?
Yep. It was you had to memorize like
memory.
plus, minus, multiply, divide signs, and it was like a spinning windmill, and you
Yeah.
had to memorize them all. Fishback stayed out there the longest, memorized it by assigning it like a 1, 2, 3, or 4, memorized it just like a phone number, it was 10 digits, came out 1 first try. And I was thinking the exact same thing during the episode. This is a very Fishback.
And Ryan, you actually said something in the episode that made a whole lot of sense to me, because my first thought was, man, I can't remember Survivor seasons. Like, I know all the winners, obviously, but I get mixed up between, 24, 25, 26. Which one is South Pacific? Which one is Second Chances?
Oh, come on now.
And then let alone the 30s, like...
Second Chances is in the 30s.
Right.
Exactly. No, don't ask me.
Josh, how many can we name? It's season 30.
I don't know.
David
David versus Goliath?
No!
37.
Oh my gosh. Heroes, Healers, Hustlers?
35.
Cambodia?
31.
This is so fun.
Ghost Island?
36.
Have I still not mentioned 30 yet?
You haven't gotten 30,
No.
but you've gotten 4 of the 10.
Worlds Apart?
30.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Can you do 32? What's 32? You're halfway there, man.
God, this is when we got into all the themes. I don't know.
You should know this one.
You should. There was actually a callback.
Blood versus Water 2?
No.
No.
Was that 29?
Yep.
It has something to do with kicking a challenge over.
Oh God, what was the name of the season though?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
All right, here's the last 5. Co-Wrong, Millennials versus Gen X, Game Changers, Edge of Extinction,
Oh yeah.
and, I don't blame you for blocking this one, Island of the Idols.
Okay, so the late 30s, I would have ended up
Okay.
getting those. Like those are easier. I was trying to focus on the early
Okay,
30s. Korong, I probably should have gotten. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a Co-Wrong buff.
I literally do. Yes, I was deciding between which one to wear tonight, and one of them was a Korong buff.
Yep.
That's how I got the other 2 correct.
Yeah.
I think. Whoopsies. Anyways, my point. When this came up, I was worried about that, and then Ryan brought up the point. You could just assign anything to this. I'm a big sports fan, so he brought up, people's jerseys. Number 18, Justin Jefferson. And now I'd have to figure out the others.
I would never have known that one.
Yeah, so, this could work for anything that you might be super knowledgeable on.
100%. Phone numbers, Survivor seasons, and sports teams.
There you
Sports
go.
balls.
Sports balls.
But Jake wins the advantage for the immunity challenge. In the immunity challenge, he only has to land 1 sandbag instead of 3. But Jake makes a couple of mistakes during this challenge. He forgets the keys he needs at one point, has to go back and get them. And then during the final puzzle, he misplaces a piece and never has it. Can't solve the puzzle without it. Austin is going to win it.
Art imitates life, imitates art, all within art, which imitates life. It's beautiful that so many things emblematic of Jake's Survivor experience keep happening, and kudos to the edit for always focusing in on the one cog in the gear set that is messing everything up for Jake. I feel for the guy. I love the guy.
I want to give him a hug.
Jake is by far my favorite lawyer to ever play this game, personality-wise. And by the way, I really like Julie a lot as well. And by the way, I like Tura as a person. I just think as a player, I'm speaking of specifically. And I just want to, I want to give him a hug. I want to give him a big group hug.
Jake is my favorite player on the season. As a personality, Jake's my number one for the season.
Yeah, I really love Owen. I mean Jake.
But Austin wins immunity. He builds the tower. It's the same one Michelle Fitzgerald built twice, kicked twice. Austin is going to kick the tower down as well.
And should any listeners ever make it onto Survivor and you win that challenge and you don't kick the puzzle over, I will slander you.
Shame.
Actually, it's not slander. Everything I say will be accurate.
Austin also gets going reward. He picks Jake, and we get Boys Night 3.
Boys Night's really slimming
Hey,
down.
with the boy. The one
The
boy.
one singular boy left.
It's getting lonely.
Boy Night. It sounds much worse when it's singular. It sounds so much worse.
It just sounds lonely.
I don't like it. I like this move to take Jake because Julie, Katurah, and Dee, I feel like they're less likely to scheme and plot against. And, they can't scheme and plot against Austin anyway. Oh no, they're going to scheme and plot against Jake? Oh, darn.
Well, and it bears repeating because I don't want the listeners to be confused. This wasn't a reward challenge. It was immunity, but Austin has to pick someone. He picked the Chaos Agent.
Yep.
Cool. I'm just going to isolate the Chaos Agent. Austin's picks for these things have been immaculate, if I can please say so and acknowledge. Absolutely bring him with, because you know that if Jake is back at camp, he's taken another big swing.
Yep. And now it is time for one of the most insane votes we've ever had in all of Survivor. Because this is nuts. Because what happens is wild. It's so scattershot. I think it might be the most scattershot Final Five we've ever had. I'd have to look at them all.
I mean, you can't get much more than this.
And going into it, we were shown so many different options of like, okay, we must have missed some stuff. They're just showing us all the different conversations they're had, and it's going to be much more straightforward once we get there. Nope. Everyone who is eligible gets at least one vote. It's insane. And there's a lot of pieces here, a lot of suggestions, more than usual, and we got to talk about all of them because they're all relevant for once. So, first off, Katurah wants to pull in Julie to take out Dee.
Now, it's for the wrong reasons, but at least we're on the right answer.
Yep. In
Cool.
hindsight, this is a great idea.
Cool. And by the way, if Julie's a bigger threat, it's not a good move. You should bring in Dee to try and vote out Julie.
And that's going to be the question.
Let's talk about that. Who is the bigger threat? I think the show tells us, as the jury sees it, it seems to be Julie, and she's the only one who's mentioned to be a great fire maker. So let's say Julie and Dee are number 1 and 2, and Julie's the better fire maker. It makes sense to take out Julie here and try and take out Dee in fire making. That makes sense.
That is the one big thing, is the fire making, because Katurah makes another solid point in favor of Dee, is that, if we want to be able to have that extra spot open in the final 3, we got to split up Dee and Austin. And I think that's a really solid point. So it just comes down to, in my opinion, how big of a difference is that fire making ability. As far as I know, we haven't heard anything about how good Dee might be.
We haven't.
Because if she is, then, I would maybe lean a little bit more towards Dee.
Sure.
And in my opinion, I think Katurah, I want to say Ryan's correct, because for Katurah specifically, we have few enough people here that we can talk about what's best for everybody. Katurah needs to go to the end with Jake and Austin.
Yep.
That is her only chance. That's her only play.
And apparently Jake and Austin both need to go with each other as well.
Exactly. Well, and that's why I don't want to gloss over what happens at the reward, but I think that taking out Dee or Julie here is a fine move. So I'm just glad that Katurah is working toward a correct move.
Yep. Bottom line, in the end, Austin, Jake, and Katurah need to go together. They have to. Dee and Julie have to go. Whatever order it is fine. They know better than we do. Maybe.
Maybe. Well,
maybe you should have taken out Drew last vote.
So, Julie does not want to take out Dee because she's loyal to Dee. She wants to take out Jake. And, to be fair to Julie, she could probably beat anybody. So, doesn't matter who goes home for her.
Yeah, do what you want.
Yeah. She wants to have Dee's back, though. And they agreed. The girls all agreed to take out Jake. On reward, Jake is immediately going to tell Austin he's got the idol and he isn't going anywhere. And Jake's whole plan here is he wants to tell people about his idol to make everyone think he's going to play it on himself. And that way he can do something fancy schmancy and play it on somebody else and make a big move and try and get some jury votes.
And by the way, we're applying retrospective analysis to this because the edit certainly didn't give it to us ahead of time that he was planting seeds the same way that Bruce was planting seeds with him earlier in the season, or the same way that he tried to plant seeds with Drew and Austin earlier in the season. But he also, when he was saying, I planned it that way, he might have just been trying to save face.
I don't think so. He's been setting this up all season.
I agree. I just wanted to point out that this is a retrospective analysis.
Yes. Which is, I mean, every episode
yes.
is retrospective analysis.
Yes. But this in particular, because it came linearly and we had no idea. We were not clued into the plan.
So Jake wants to take out Julie because she's a bigger threat than Katurah. Yep.
That's correct.
Checks out.
And says, I want to go to the end with you and Katurah. We have said it out loud. This is what the 3 underlings need to do.
Yep.
And Austin, you should recognize this too. You have to. You have to.
Do you have a shot against D? Apparently, yeah.
Apparently,
you have a shot, but if you're going to final 3, you want to have a little more confidence than just a shot.
So on the way back to camp, Jake's like, hey, please don't tell anyone about my idol. Austin immediately tells D about Jake's idol. Instantly.
And I think that's what he wanted.
Yep. I think Jake doesn't care either way. He's like, yep, people need to know it. They won't come after me. They'll go after someone else. I can play it on somebody else.
And if you publicize it too much, then they're going to know what's up and they might, toss a couple votes on you.
Yep. He gets one. Austin wants Katurah out next for some reason.
I think it was just because that's what he talked about with Jake, and he also sees Katurah as a bit of a chaos agent as well, which, in fairness, if you want to talk about effective chaos agents in terms of wiping out your entire own tribe, or at least everyone in Bello's chance of winning, Katurah is the bigger chaos agent than Jake.
Yeah, she's got Lex energy. She's moving the pieces just the wrong way.
Huge Lex energy.
So Jake also tells Katurah he's got the idol. And Katurah's like, let's use it to take out D. Okay, that's also fair.
Yeah. Yes, these are both good ideas.
So Jake at this point, he's like, I don't think I'm getting votes. I think I'm going to play this in Katurah and do something wild and get some attention from the jury. And for Jake, I think he's got to do something like this because nothing has gone right for this guy.
And even a big move like this, I don't know if it does the job. You need this plus another immunity win, plus fire making, plus hoping that your social game comes through.
Put himself in a fire making against D, knock her out, go to the end with Katurah, maybe now.
Well,
have a chance.
And also, this bears bringing up, even though we like to talk about 39 as little as possible, if everything goes right for Jake right now, he's just Dean Kowalski instead of Owen Knight. He's got 2 paths laid before him. One gives him a better shot to win, but both lead to losses.
Though I will say Jake's could probably get a better social game than Dean.
Probably true.
Because, the thing with Dean is he really was very closed off in the early portions of the game and didn't make those social bonds, which really hurt him later on.
So we're splitting the vote, right? One of the best parts of that. One of the only good parts of that season.
Yep, indeed. Dean in general is one of the only good parts of that season. So, Dee tells Julie that Jake is an idol. Julie does not believe it, and she wants to target Jake anyway and roll the dice. Julie, let it go. It doesn't have to be Jake. You can go after anyone, and you'll probably win. Take out Dee.
It really doesn't matter.
If Julie was being a game bot, this would be a great time to take out Dee. However, if Dee is loyal to you and you're loyal to Dee and you can beat anyone at the end, maybe it does make sense to keep some certainty in your life.
Especially if you can beat anyone in fire, too.
But the point Ryan is making, if Jake has an idol and you've heard from reliable sources, maybe just assume the dude's got an idol and try and do something else.
Take out Katurah. Easy peasy. Austin wants to turn on Julie now because he's kind of realizing Jake's right. Julie's a bigger threat than Katurah. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What? No.
But Dee's like, I'm voting for Katurah no matter what. That I'm not going to turn on Julie. I'm throwing my vote on Katurah. You do what you got to do.
Gutsy.
Bad.
Gutsy.
This, you could say that, but it's a bad move to waste your vote like this, I think.
Well, here's the thing, though. Obviously, there was no consensus out there. I believe if there had been even a semblance of a consensus, first of all, Dee would have been in on it because everybody tells Dee everything.
Yeah, apparently.
And she would have piled on. I genuinely believe she would have. I think there was no idea about what was going on, and so she's like, okay, all I have is my loyalty and my trust that this isn't coming my way. She wins by 1 vote. So whether it's Emily's, whether it's Julie's, whether it's anybody's, all these little things count. So that's why I say gutsy. Maybe not game body, but gutsy.
But she almost loses here by 1 vote.
Almost. But
she should.
We are not playing tiddlywinks. We are not playing grenades.
Let's get into tribal council because You're being too nice to D right now at this moment. So Katurah is going to make Jake swear on his nana that he will vote for D, and he does. And he does.
Yeah. Who cares?
Katurah doesn't.
And by the way, it doesn't really matter to Jake. He needs D and Julie to go home.
Yep.
Which I don't understand. Katurah, like, why would he turn on you? You need to understand where you are in the game. Katurah.
Oh, I have a bone to pick with her, but I'll wait until after Tribal.
Tribal Council, Jake is going to play his idol on Katurah. There was only one vote for Katurah, and that came from D. D did what she said she was going to do, just throw a vote on Katurah. We get one vote for D, which is from Jake, like he said he was going to do. We get one vote for Jake from Julie for some dumb reason.
Exactly what
Which
she
we were
said she was
told.
going to do.
Yep. And then finally, Austin votes for Julie, like he said he was going to do. And Katurah votes for Julie. She got scared at the last minute at Tribal Council and swapped her vote to Julie instead of D just because she thought she was going to go home and maybe she could force a tie by voting for Julie instead.
Which makes zero sense.
I think it makes a little bit of sense.
How?
Because you got Jake. So we got Jake voting for D, and so with the Austin and D group, there might be like Austin voting for Julie, and let's say we get like a tie between Julie and Katurah. There might be, so it would have to be a 2-2-1, and then on the revote that one person, let's say Jake would have been the one voted for D, right? He's alone.
Mhm.
So on the revote now, Julie can't vote, Katurah can't vote, Jake, Austin, and D can. Maybe Julie goes home on that revote, whereas I don't think D would if there was a tie, a forced tie. So I think if we are going to a tie, Julie is more likely to go home over Katurah than D is. So I think there is some logic there if we're just looking at pure self-preservation. In a tie revote, D is not going home. Julie is definitely more likely to go home.
Because fewer people are willing to flip on D.
Yeah,
essentially.
nobody's flipping on D, save like Jake. Austin and D could flip on Julie, like that's
if
possible.
necessary. Yeah.
Julie, I don't think is going to flip on.
And that logic, yes, that logic makes sense to me. But I think it was the beginning of her thought process that didn't, where she's like, if votes are coming to me, and she's basically putting all of the stock behind Jake lying to her and it actually being on her and not going towards D. And that's where that doesn't really make sense.
And that's why I'm confused. You're saying a revote is likely to go to Julie. If a revote is likely to go to Julie, why didn't she just stick with her plan if a revote is likely going to Julie? She switched her vote to Julie.
Because the original plan would have been, let's say it did end up with as a tie, it would have been 2 votes D, 2 votes Katurah, and then the 5th person's got to switch their vote between them. That's going to land on Katurah probably. Whereas if it's a 2 votes on Julie and 2 votes on Katurah, and then the 3rd person's got to decide, it's probably going to be Julie.
Okay, I understand. So you're saying Katurah was worried about 2 votes D, 2 votes Katurah.
Yep.
And that was the tie she didn't want to face. Okay, there's some logic there. I still think, like, if you're in Katurah's position, you need to maybe risk that and trust that people want to get rid of a player, at least enough people.
Yeah, she definitely panicked, but she didn't have all the information. She didn't know what Jake was doing. So I actually don't fault Katurah too much for doing this with the information she had. Jake, it's a classic Bello move. Because the Bellows don't properly communicate and they implode their own game. Jake wants to be all fancy in front of the jury.
Let's be clear. Katurah does not communicate correctly with Bello.
Kendra didn't do great either.
Well,
Bruce didn't do great either. And now Jake doesn't do great.
I think Jake did exactly what he said he was going to do. He didn't say that he was going to play his idol on Katurah, but I wouldn't tell her that. She literally blew up his last idea.
But Jake does not tell Katurah everything. And he seems to be acting a little cagey about it.
There's absolutely zero reason for Jake to tell Katurah about his idol.
Yeah, that's fair. But Katurah doesn't trust him, so she changes something. And because he was a little cagey, she gets scared and changes her vote.
If we're talking game body about self-awareness, and I promise this will be my last comment on this, Katurah needs to trust that going to the end with her is in Jake's best interest. You can always trust people's best interests the most on Survivor. You can't trust anything.
So, in the end, Julie goes home on 2 votes from Austin and Katurah because Katurah got scared. I'm going to say this is the right person to go home, the wrong way to get here, but, what do you do?
Either D or Julie are right moves, and from what we've been told, Julie's the bigger fire-making threat. I will hang my hat on that tentatively and trust that the right person went home, but like you said, this was pure nonsense. Right person, wrong reason.
To me, it feels like it should be D going here just because she feels like the bigger threat, but I'm kind of in Derek's shoes where I almost have to trust what people are saying, both with Fire and both with, Julie's threat level from the jury. I guess I'll say that's a right move. Both need to go, though.
Yeah, at one point during the season, we were told that Julie is the bigger threat than D. We haven't been told that it's changed, so we have to go with it because that's what we're given.
Yeah, that's the most recent.
Yep.
Because it was D at the merge, and then it switched to Julie out of nowhere, and that's where it's been.
And that's, she hasn't made any enemies, really. Besides Jake, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did Twitter have to say about this one?
Yeah, 74% of Twitter disagrees. They think that the wrong person went home here.
Yeah, they probably think D was probably the right move.
I don't know with Twitter, or maybe they just wanted someone like Katura to go home just because it's Twitter.
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure.
I love trying to interpret Twitter. Yeah. It's like my favorite part of this podcast.
If you're voting in these polls, reply.
But ultimately, Jake's idle play doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything.
Oh, shocker!
Shocker!
I love you, Jake. But it's too easy.
Yep. This is all love.
All right, let's get into best and worst player of the final 5. Josh, start us off. Who is the best player of the final 5?
I gotta go with Austin just because, one, he won immunity, and I don't like to just use that as a default, but also he was able to put a vote on Julie. The other Julie vote, yes, does make sense. Honestly, it might have been better for Austin if D might have gone home here, but I'm not going to look too hard at that. But yeah, he was actually able to make a commitment for once in his dang life here and go against what D wants and make his own move. Yeah, D doesn't go with him, and she makes her own decision here, but at least he did that. So good on him.
I'm going to agree. Austin, he wins immunity, takes out Julie. Plus, coming back in Tribal Council, he handled the betrayal by D very well, maybe too well. But I still think he made the right move in the end. So Austin's my best.
Yeah, it's Austin. Both D and Julie need to go for him to win the game. And as of this point in the episode, he might just be playing nice with D. There is a chance, but he is one step closer to victory with Julie going home. He put his name on it. He parted ways with D on the vote. It is kind of a bad look for D in some respects, like not for Julie's jury vote, but for the optics of the rest of the jury that she kind of dug her heels in. It can certainly go both ways, so it's Austin.
For worst player, I'm giving mine to D. It's great that she got Austin back on her side. That's wonderful. I really don't like that she voted for Katura. That felt like a waste of a vote. And the thing is, with her wasted vote on Katura, instead of taking out Julie or, making a more definitive move, she was one vote away from being knocked out. If Katura hadn't gotten scared, D's out of the game, it doesn't win. Whereas if she does commit and votes for Julie, or Jake even, really, goes with someone instead of just being like, you know what, no, I'm not going to go along with it this time, she pretty much guarantees she's not going out. One vote, Katura getting panicky, hands D the win, or loses D the game. So D is my worst.
I agree that it's D. It's mostly because I think everyone else worked toward their self-interest in some respect. I'm giving another dishonorable mention to Katura because she does get cold feet, and granted, yes, at the end of the day, at the end of the vote, Julie goes home. But also now once again, nobody trusts you. And I feel like even though she got the right person out, she's more goated than she was before. I think she's lower in the standings again for failing to follow through with anything that she said she was going to do. So dishonorable mention to her, but D hurt her chances the most by not going with Austin on this.
I was originally thinking Katura, but since a big threat still went home and she voted for that person, I'm only going to give her a dishonorable mention. I am going to have it be D just because D should be going home here if Katura doesn't flip, which is just so weird. It's just so weird because Jake originally wanted Julie and then she convinced him to go to D and then she flipped back. So it's just a bunch of nonsense from Katura. And yet it still works out for her.
And I apologize to the viewers if that was confusing. It was confusing to us. That was a wild Tribal Council.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm already emotionally drained. But we're not done yet. Let's go to the final 4, baby.
Once you're all out of emotion, you got to just keep on slugging.
So they get back to camp and Jake immediately throws Katura under the bus for targeting D. He's like, why'd you make me swear on my Nana?
I wouldn't even say he's throwing her under the bus. I think he was just ticked off. He's like, are you kidding me?
Well, yeah, because it doesn't make sense. It was so unnecessary.
Jake's mistake was trusting that Katurah would act in her own self-interest, which I just said is the most trustworthy thing you can do, which is why sometimes it is best to get rid of the wild cards early. And Katurah has proved time and again that she's a wild card. She's a GOAT. She's not winning, but you need to be able to manage it. And
Wild card, bitches.
And honestly, with what Katurah's been through in her life, I think the last thing she wants to be is managed.
Yeah, true.
And honestly, more power to her for that. I wouldn't, like, if I had her story, I think I would have a bit of a problem with being told what to do.
Yeah.
And I say that again with all respect in the world.
Yep. Completely fair and justified on every level.
And all that's fine and dandy, but she does say something that really, really bothered me here.
I know.
Yep.
Because during this confrontation with Jake, which I'm perfectly fine with, air everything, especially when you think someone's in the wrong. But Jake basically asks, like, why? Why even do any of this? And Katurah says, because I didn't trust you, Jake, because I didn't trust you to go with whatever plan that we were going to be doing. And why?
She said we need to have some accountability
Personal
here.
accountability.
Well, we need to have some personal accountability. And specifically, she said, why didn't you just tell me that you're going to be playing the idol on me? Well, Katurah, if you actually don't trust Jake in this entire process, why in any of his right mind would he tell you that he was going to be playing the idol on you and trying to whoop-de-wop everyone else on the tribe to be able to make this big move? You have shown time and time again, when working with Jake in the past, that you'd completely go against him. If Jake tells you that he's going to be playing his idol for you, you're going to go around and tell Dee and tell Julie, and you're going to vote Jake out.
We've seen the cutaway one too many times with Katurah.
That is 100% what would have happened. So that is why Jake did not tell you about the idol. And that just bothered me so much.
Katurah was the least trustworthy person on this entire season.
Yep.
She was also the person who trusted the least. She manages to hold both crowns, and she felt like it was a balancing act, but she tipped over long ago.
So, Final Four Immunity Challenge, it's, you gotta stack a bunch of cups, but you have to get across, like, a bunch of tripwires, basically. It's like a rack of tripwires. So, like, it kind of looks like almost like a bed frame of wires that'll knock the cups over. Jake knocks all his cups over, and he's rushing to get back into it, so he's just walking across the bed frame thing, and it breaks.
Kind of pouty, by the way.
He was pouty.
Might we acknowledge, because, him and Dee were neck and neck at like 11 or 12 out of 15 cups, and then he pulls an Owen and gets a little pouty and breaks the challenge and kicks himself out of the final immunity challenge, and me and Ryan, we looked at Josh and said, how long ago did you say that
Owen.
Jake was Owen?
Owen had a cup stacking challenge that he broke his stick on. Jake has a cup stacking challenge that he breaks the bars on.
Yeah. So technically, Owen was never DQ'd for the challenge because it ended right when he broke his stick.
But it was
he wouldn't have been able to go on.
He wouldn't have been able to continue, but he technically wasn't DQ'd. Jake is DQ'd. He cannot complete the challenge. He's out.
Yeah, one is a DNF, one is a DQ.
And so let's get into Oracle Josh here.
Thank you.
This entire post-merge, I can't remember exactly when it was, but you started talking about how, especially when I was like, Jake can win this game, and you're like, no, Jake's Owen. He's likable.
That's when it started.
Nothing ever goes his way. He's going to get to the end and get 0 votes. The football keeps getting kicked out from under him. I'm like, no. And then you're completely right. And add on to the fact that just like Owen, Jake breaks something in the Final Four Immunity Challenge and loses because of his temper a little bit. So, Josh.
Yes.
What are the lottery numbers going to be tomorrow?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, it's going to be 18, 43.
Yeah, it's going to be
43.
JT with a little bit of Parvati in there, maybe.
Yeah, we got Denise and of course Alligabler. Yep.
So yeah, it's uncanny how much Jake's story is similar to Owen's. It really is insane how similar these two are.
Corporate wants you to find the difference between these two pictures.
Can't do it.
I'm glad, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it took this long for you to realize it, because actually, it was so obvious to me. Like I can't even take that much pride in this because it was that obvious to me at the time. And I was seeing it a little bit, which is when I first, made that statement. But very quickly, like the very next episode, I was planting my flag in the Jake can't win this game arena.
Now, okay, I very rarely get to do this. I'm going to step in front of Ryan a little bit, like this onslaught. Ryan came around last episode for sure. So it's not just this week. And there's no way you saw him breaking a challenge.
Okay, no, obviously not. But
so
the 0 vote finalists, emblematic of Owen, and basically being a 0 vote finalist for the same reason, and almost more importantly, going against the reason why why Ryan and you, I guess, if we're talking about Owen, why you guys thought that they could win the game. Because it was for the exact same reason. Yep. It was because they're very likable. And I was saying, but they're not doing anything. And not only are they not doing anything, but they're attempting to do things and failing. And regardless of what was going on in the game, it was their social game that was being used as the reason why they could still win the game. And I was saying, no.
But D is going to end up winning immunity. So D is locked herself into the final 3. So she has to decide who she's going to take with her to the end. Obviously Austin. We all were like, take Austin in the end because then he doesn't get that flashy move on his resume.
Oddly enough, probably the right move.
100% the right move.
Like I think we need to clue everyone in though, because we're analyzing this retrospectively. But when D won that challenge, all of us were like, well, there's the game. Very, very Mike Holloway from 30. We were just talking about 30. We were just kind of like, all right, well, we might as well hug it out now because $1 million is hers. It is not.
Apparently not.
It is not.
But D has that secret weapon of that she knows Austin believes she did not tell Julie about the plan to take her out. So she's got that secret weapon up her sleeve. So it is a little bit more.
But would have winning fire persuaded one person? Because you only got to change one person's vote.
I hope not. Because fire making is stupid.
I know you hope not, but it has in the past.
I know you hope not, but if we're looking at it retrospectively, like, okay, cool. Apparently Austin had a 3-5 resume. He had a 3-5 argument. We'll call it an argument. With the fire making and the added risk and knocking someone else out, maybe it turns into a 4-4.
Maybe. But I genuinely hope not. But she doesn't want Austin to have any more limelight in front of the jury, which is smart. So she's going to send Jake and Katurah to fire. And Jake is going to end up winning the fire-making challenge and knocking Katurah out of the game.
At least he finally got something.
He finally got it.
I'm so happy Jake got something.
Yep. And sadly, this is where my finale prediction finally went off course. I was so proud up until this point, though, because I was completely right. And I know I've said that multiple times this episode, but I'm going to keep saying it because I can. Very,
very quickly, how do you guys feel about Katurah kind of being sold as a bit of a jury threat? Did you buy into it, or did that feel more just, hey, we're going to say our niceties?
This is where I almost wish that she would have won, just because I think we would have gotten a completely different edit of hers if she was going to be at Final Tribal Council. Maybe we would have gotten a little bit more of a negative edit for Jake and a little bit more positive for Katurah. And who knows, maybe there were things that we weren't shown from Katurah's game and she could have gotten a couple of votes. I doubt it.
I was going to say,
but maybe.
If that's the case, the Survivor editors deserve way more credit for making every one of Katurah's moves look nonsensical.
Yeah. I never bought Katurah as a winner threat.
Post-merge,
but Jake was, because she was
says the guy with the
yes. Let's check in on our winner picks.
In this finale, I never bought her as a winner pick. That's what I meant to say. That's what I meant.
Yep.
So, I think it was more of a case Jake was just so luckless that taking him to the end might be better than taking Katurah to the end. But Jake wins. Katurah's out of the game. Let's talk about best and worst player of the final 4. Derek.
It's D. She wins, and she wins.
Correct.
She's the biggest threat left out there, and she got it done. There was no way that anyone could put her in a position to take her out. She was not vulnerable when everyone else needed her to be. It was not convenient.
Josh?
Everything that Derek said, plus she kneecapped, if that's the right term, Austin from being able to have any sort of extra argument, which I didn't think it at the time, but maybe actually had a purpose here. Maybe it prevented a tie from happening, and who knows what Jake would end up doing. So yeah, it's D.
Agree completely. One immunity, took Austin in the end, let Jake and Katurah do fire. Smart move.
The one thing we didn't really talk about either is her conversation specifically with Katurah before fire making, because she talks to Katurah about like, hey, I don't want to sit with you at the end. I do in general like that, because basically you're talking this person up, and if they get ousted at fire, that could be a little bit of jury management on the way out. But at the same time, Katurah is a really well-spoken person. They don't know she's a lawyer yet, but she already is starting to pitch herself at this tribal council and using Dee's words against her already.
Yep.
So, like, is there enough benefit to do something like that?
It gets Katurah's jury vote.
Maybe.
But if Katurah does make it through, it definitely paints Katurah in a positive light. I think at fire making, you want to be on as good of terms with people as possible as people are going out the door, just to get the jury vote. That's what I think.
Especially since she was in a different mindset than like Jake. Jake wanted to be in there, and Katurah didn't.
Yep. But yeah, so when Julie got voted out, she was like, Katurah, you should go to law school. So as Katurah's leaving, she's like, oh, by the way, everyone, I am a lawyer.
I am Iron Man.
It was great.
And because Jake said the same thing to her.
Yeah, go to law school.
Yep.
And she's like, yeah, lawyer. It's hilarious. We knew it.
She was a lawyer the whole time.
Oh my God. Secret Lawyer Island.
Just like a Scooby-Doo mask.
How about worst player? Josh.
I don't know. Our options are Austin and Jake. Jake won fire, and Austin was just there. I can't give it to Austin just because that was just basically a nothing. Everything was out of his hands. Even though Jake won fire, I kind of want to give it to him just because he was being real pouty at the challenge and broke it unnecessarily. Like, I get what he was doing, but it was very unnecessary. He was completely out of it, though, so I wouldn't be opposed to an NA here either.
That's what I did, just because I think the good outweighs the bad with Jake here, because he did win fire and stayed alive. Breaking the challenge was bad, but, like, hey, he made it through, so I'm not going to give out a worst player.
I'll do it. I gave it to Jake. He was pouty and he broke the challenge. There was still a chance when that happened. Like in a vacuum, he's being pouty, picking up his cups. D could have dropped.
Yep.
She doesn't. But how much does Jake breaking the challenge factor into D not messing up? I don't know, and they'll never know, and Jake will never know. So, and plus, we've already seen this with Owen, where he literally broke a challenge and he couldn't finish. He didn't get DQ'd, but just don't do this. Yeah. And even if he says like he was just going quickly, and maybe that is the case, it definitely looked a little pouty, a little stompy. So I have Jake. I'm willing to say it.
Okay, I'll go with Jake because he could still win immunity theoretically. It wasn't over yet, so theoretically he could still win immunity, give it up, and put himself into fire, which would have been a bigger, technically. Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered, but technically a bigger boost than just being put into fire on your own.
Well, and then you knock out D, because I'm assuming you put yourself against D in fire making.
That'd be the right move.
True.
And then, okay, you've got a jury that's mostly Bello, and you've got Austin, who didn't beat D, and you've got Katurah, who's not getting any votes. I don't think.
So, yeah, at the Final Four, we can't really say did the right person go home, but the question is, Josh, did D put the right person into fire making?
Yeah, basically, did D make the right choice with who she brought to Final Tribal?
Sure.
And 77% said yes. Bringing Austin was the right move for her.
Big news, breaking news, I lose my winner pick. Katurah is out of the game.
Lasted a lot longer than I was expecting.
My day one, my OG winner pick. I'm going to move on to D. And I did this live during the episode, so we didn't know D had won yet. Vouch for me.
Oh yeah, he put his hand in.
Oh yeah, do you want to reenact? Your very long thought process of it.
I lost my winner pick. D.
Immediate.
So I'll just jump ahead here. Derek, we did it. Our winner pick won.
Yeah.
Yay!
First try.
First try. Woo! Congratulations,
Josh. Swoop.
Hey, I got more votes than I thought I was gonna.
All right. Final Tribal Council stuff. We get some words from the jury. They kind of talk to us about what they think of the three going into it. They think Jake had the hardest path to the end. D had an amazing social game. And Austin was a huge threat, but never managed to get his name written down. So that's kind of the three big things we get from the jury going into Tribal Council. Tribal Council itself is really fun, really good. We hear from pretty much everybody, but not everybody is worth mentioning, like Kendra. Katura wants to know what fears they overcame. Both Austin and Dee say they were scared of getting close to people and blindsiding them. Dee makes a note she never had a blindside her two closest allies. I thought that might be a point against her for a second.
That's what I thought too, because and Emily frames this really well later about more acting with heart or emotion and not being able to make the hard decisions.
Yep. And Jake's fear was failure.
Lots of chances to overcome it,
Jake
man.
got to face his fear. Oh my gosh. Dude, someone give the man a hug, please.
Jake had just lived 26 days in terror the entire time.
Like, I hope he's okay. Like, the dude is going to need some serious therapy.
Hey, but you know what? He failed on Survivor.
And I think he said something about that. Like, he's like, there was days I was sad, but then I was just like, I'm sad, but I'm on Survivor.
I'm glad he brought it back. It was a great wraparound.
So Drew asked Austin D what they brought to the read before. And they kind of talk about how close they were and how well they worked together. But Austin's like, D was more focused on self-preservation, whereas I was more focused on helping the group. And I'm like, oh, Austin and D finally gonna fight. And they do.
Yeah, and it was really nice for the first, I think, like 2 questions. And then it was all out after that. They were willing and ready to go against each other. And I'm so glad that they did.
Yeah. Yeah, this not Rob and Amber.
No. God.
So, Austin talks about his amulet revenge on Kelly, bringing in Emily.
Yeah, by the way, hashtag sandwich justice.
Sandwich justice.
Which he said was planned the entire time. It didn't really seem like it. It seemed like he actually wanted nothing to do with the amulets. And that's just what it sounded like in confessional.
Well, he said, I know we're going to get stuck with these amulets, but...
Well, and the other thing is, you're talking to the jury. I know Jay's not there, but Kelly's there. You don't want to tell Kelly she made the wrong move with the amulet. You just tell her, I wanted to be the one with the excuse to be like, I didn't want to get saddled with this. So, of course, I'm going to be the first person to clear it out. I wanted a sandwich. So I think this was framed perfectly. True or not, doesn't matter.
And actually, I think that's I want to bring this up just because it was actually on the On Fire podcast, whether or not it is okay to lie during Final Tribal Council, and where that line is, because you want to be truthful about your game and not just basically take credit for things that you didn't actually do or completely lie about what happened. So, where is that line?
The stuff you want to lie about, Todd Herzog lying to Jean Robert about why he took out Jean Robert, like, oh, you're the biggest threat. You want to lie in places where it can stroke people's ego, and no one can verify that. Anything that could be verifiable by anyone on the jury or in the Final Tribal Council, you don't want to lie about that, because that will immediately get brought up and used against you. Ryan Ulrich is the perfect example of this. He tried to take credit for everything in Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, and everybody's like, no, you didn't do anything. So yeah, you only want to lie about stuff where there's no loose ends. And that could be about your feelings about someone, as long as you haven't told people how you feel about someone. Jean Robert, Todd hates Jean Robert's guts. He's not going to say that to Jean Robert at Tribal Council. He's going to say no, you were just such a huge threat. I had to take you out, and really stroke that ego. That's the kind of stuff you want to lie about. But anything that can be fact checked, don't lie. That's not worth the risk. That could blow up in your face.
And I want to say, especially with the modern Final Tribal setup, it might have been easier to do something like that before, especially if it's the last juror asking a question and then nobody talks and then you go vote. Maybe you could lie about some gameplay that actually happened, but it would have to be about something that the jury couldn't have talked about at Ponderosa.
Correct.
I'm all about lying all you got to do, but like Ryan said, if it's verifiable, best to just tell the truth and hope that your game stands on its own. Yeah. If you're in that position, you're probably not going to win anyway.
But what is interesting is both Austin and Dee are going to take credit for the Kendra boot. They're all going to be like, oh, I did this. And I took our Kendra. No, I took our Kendra.
Which can be true. Multiple people could have their, either the same or different motivation and feel like they have just as much influence over a vote, especially when it's coming from, bringing different people into an alliance to make those moves.
As Kendra said, maybe they're both speaking their truth.
Well, and if we harken back to that episode, I recall that Austin and Drew wanted to take out Kendra because they had spent some time with her and they knew that she was a little bit tricksy. And I also remember Dee convincing Julie not to go for Jake. And that was the first time that we saw Dee kind of get her way within the alliance where there was a butt head with her number one. So I do think both are true.
So Emily, she asked Dee what was a more focused decision she made as opposed to emotional? And Dee's like, I can't separate the two. I made my relationships first, and the strategy grew from that. Great answer.
Oh, I disagree. I did not like her
Really?
answer.
I think she missed out on the opportunity to go share.
Because, and you didn't really say exactly what Emily said, because she was specifically looking for one example where she was using her head, not her heart, and she wants it to be a specific and concise example.
Okay.
And that is the exact opposite of what Dee said. Dee had a great answer for a different question.
Sure.
I really liked the answer that she gave about bringing those two things together, but that's not what Emily was asking for. A better one would be to bring up her conversation with Austin and how that specific move, when, you know, maybe this was the opportunity to reveal the information given to Julie about the idol, and that would be a very specific, concise example.
I don't know about that one. I think she wanted to save that for secret weapon for when Austin tried to bring that up, and then she could blow up the spot.
Maybe then think of a different example. But regardless, my main point is that she didn't really give Emily what she was looking for. No, she still got Emily's vote.
Yep.
In the end. She must have got enough information, but at least responding to this specific question, I don't think she did at all.
I see. I do still like the answer because, you know, what Emily was looking for, maybe Dee didn't really have it besides the one which she wanted to save. And if you don't have the thing they're looking for, give them something else. And I think Dee did that.
Ryan, I think the silver bullet you're talking about is when Dee reveals that she talked to Julie.
Yep.
I think what Josh is talking about is that Dee did not talk to Austin, which everyone was aware of. She did not bring Austin in on the Drew vote.
That's a good point.
So that's
Yep.
the one brainy move that I wanted to hear her say there.
She could have done that.
Yes.
She could have done that.
Yeah, and I was really talking about either of those two. Like,
sure.
she could use either of them. So if she wants to, you know, keep one in her holster for later,
Yeah.
awesome. I'm just saying, put one out there.
Yeah, she could have said, I didn't tell Austin about the Drew vote. I really wanted to, but I didn't. Yeah, she could have said that.
And
Yeah.
and Austin confirmed that had I told him, he would have played his amulet on Drew, which might solidify Drew's vote, but might swing Emily's.
That works. Caleb talks to Jake kind of more about his game, and Jake, one of his accusations that doesn't quite land, but I thought it was going to for a second. He's like, I made big swings, and Austin and Dee made safe moves.
I wish he would have pushed on this more, because he brought this up on the beach, like leading into it. That was a really big point in his favor on how his game was different from theirs. And, you know, maybe he did and we just didn't see it, but I really wish he would have pushed this to, you know, make them look a little bit worse and, you know, more stagnant as players throughout the post-merge.
Sure. Kelly brings up advantages. Austin points out it's pretty cool that he didn't need to play his idol. That's impressive. But he's like, yeah, but, you know, you could have saved Drew and you didn't because I didn't tell you about it. You were left out. Dee's like, I didn't need any idols or advantages, like, at all. Didn't have them, didn't need them. And then Jake's like, you know, I had one. And Couture's like, yeah, but you screwed up because you should have told me about it. And Jake's like, well, I wanted your genuine reaction of when I played it on you at Trouble. So, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing to wrap in, we already talked about Dean once. You know, having hardware and not playing it doesn't earn you the points that you might think it will. So just for those of you out there, if you can do something useful with it, you don't need the souvenir.
We get a little bit of showmance talk, and they both confirm the affection was real for each other. It wasn't just strategy. Cute. Well, let's see if it's still going. I'm dying to know. I gotta know. But finally, here we go. The big moment. Emily brings up the decision that Austin told Dee that Julie was going, which blew everything up and caused Emily to go home. And she's critical of Austin. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have told Dee. And he's like, well, actually, as far as I know, Dee didn't tell Julie. And she just guessed and played her idol. And Dee's like, actually, I did tell Julie. And the look on Austin's face, like, the betrayal. I can't believe you've done this. And that's where I'm like, yep, that's the game.
Yeah, you know, they actually had me for a while. I actually thought that Austin was winning this final tribal council. Now, whether or not he gets enough votes to win, that's an argument that could be made. But once this came around, it was the absolute nail in the coffin. And I don't think it had to be, because I think it was just a miswording by Austin. It was true. Mm-hmm. What he said was absolutely true. But it was the way that he worded it that made him look out of the loop and clueless about the situation. All he had to do was really downplay just the situation overall and make sure that this wasn't going to be, some big secret that's being revealed, just in case. You don't know what other information might be out there in the game, so don't even open up the door for people to have a gotcha moment.
It was his loyalty to D. Because in the statement, as far as I know, D did not tell Julie. He was giving D the benefit of the doubt and showing it to the jury. I am loyal to her 100%. And she immediately counters, look how loyal he is to me. I lied.
Four words to never say at Final Tribal Council, as far as I know.
Yep. Yeah, he could have said something like,
that was 5 words. Sorry.
D was my closest ally, and I wanted to keep her trust. So even if she did tell Julie, fine, but I told her she was in the loop. And that was important to me. Could have framed it like that. But D really puts the nail in the coffin even more, because she says Julie wanted to use the idol to blindside Austin out of the game, and I talked her out of it, and we took Emily out instead. Oof.
So, 2 stones with 1 bird there.
Oh, what an answer.
Mm-hmm. Game set match.
It's gonna be 5 votes for D, 3 votes for Austin, 0 votes for Jake. Give Jake a vote, damn it.
No
hinky votes for Jake tonight.
He cannot be Owen reincarnate here by getting a vote.
So Kendra, Drew, and Bruce, they all voted for Austin. Everyone else voted for D. Drew, not shocking.
Kendra and Bruce?
Kendra's a little surprising.
Bruce is less surprising. Yeah. And for the first time in the new era, we don't have a blowout win. Yeah, it's refreshing.
7-1-0. All 4 of them have been 7-1-0 until this one.
Love it.
We love it.
I love actually having some competition.
It was nice. And we didn't think there was going to be any.
Well, I was so happy Austin did not get Xandered, because Josh has been championing the Owen Jake comparison for a while now. But I really didn't want Austin to get Xandered, because I still think that Xander deserved more than what he got. But that's, again, based on an edit, wasn't on the island. I'm glad that Austin was able to play that game better.
So now the question is, who would we have voted for? D.
Based on the Final Tribal Council and seeing who was loyal to who and my perception, it has to go to D. But I would have given good long thought to the fact that Austin, the big threat, who was brainier than he let on, who was more strategic than maybe looks would appear, severed from Julie when he needed to. Ariba needed to win, and D proved that she was the leader of Reba, I believe, and the most well-rounded player. But I would have considered Austin. I would have considered it.
I think Austin was the more strategic player for a majority of the game. D made her moves and had her influence. She got her way several times, and I actually kind of knocked her for it when those episodes came around. But when it came down to it, D was able to separate the emotion from the game, and Austin was not able to, and D took advantage of that in a great strategic way. So it's got to be D.
Yeah, I think she had the best physical, social, and strategic game. Austin was close especially with the social stuff, but for me, it is D. What did Twitter think? Did the right person win?
75% of Twitter said yes, the right person won.
All right,
nice.
And what would those percentages be on the island with a 5-3 vote?
37.5, 62.5. So
pretty close.
Survivor After Show is a whole bunch of nothing like it usually is. We need to stop doing this and do reunions, because the after shows are just dumb. It's just people yelling and eating pizza. But I did love that Julie revealed she was a lawyer. That was fun.
Did all the lawyers lie on here?
Yeah, we found out that Jake lied about being a public defender. He's a prosecutor.
Yeah, he's a prosecutor. He told everyone he's a public defender. Same thing, I think. No, Nick Wilson. Not to bring up Nick Wilson, but he said he was a social worker and he was a public defender. That's what it was. F. Nick Wilson.
I knew it was coming.
Once again, this is an anti-Nick Wilson podcast, but unfortunately, he's part of Survivor history.
Ryan, you're gonna keep earning us those 2-star reviews.
Yeah, if you are also anti-Nick Wilson, leave us a 5-star review.
Yeah. If you wanna leave us a comment saying F Nick Wilson, I'll read it on the podcast. 5 stars, F Nick Wilson.
Oh,
and you know what? If you're a Nick Wilson supporter, F you. I'll gladly take 2 stars for that. I'll take 1 star for that.
Wow, ooh, even a 1 star.
F Nick Wilson. Let's wrap up this season. Yeah. Season 45 is done. Let's get into best and worst player of the season. I'll start us off with best player of the season. And as a reminder, we only take into account the people who made the merge. And Jemiah will counter because the Emergatory.
Aw, how nice.
She counts. She's not winning either, I'll be honest. But my best player is D. For a long time I thought for sure slam dunk Austin. He fell apart at the end. He fell in love. And D was able to separate her emotions. Austin was not. I think Derek, you said that. That's why. So D's my best player this season.
Yeah, and I would love to go possibly one step further. We're always saying that everyone who goes out there and says that they want to play like Kim Spradlin, they can't. Dee did not, but she's the closest we've had. The jury values different things, which is why Austin had a chance. But if you really think about how she ran her alliance from day one, and it was strong, and it was reliable, and she got her way almost every time, and Kim didn't, she wasn't perfect either. Dee was not perfect, but she's the closest I think we've had to a Kim game since Kim.
I'm going to pull an Emily here and say, I'm going to push back on that a little bit.
You're going to push back on that?
The one big difference is that Dee, surprisingly, actually got a lot of attention for being a threat earlier in the post-merge, and I don't think Kim had that during her season.
Both did pretty well with threat management, though. That's why I'm saying
it didn't last long.
And everyone is their own person, but Kim comes up so often. I just felt the need to acknowledge I think this is the closest we've seen since Kim.
I think I've developed a new pet peeve. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think that makes me instantly like someone less. It's like, shut up. Just shut up. No, you're not pushing back. I'm going to throw you overboard. Like that. I think I hate that.
When people say that?
I think I hate it.
All
Is that a finance thing, Derek?
It's more just a corporate thing.
It's corporate speak.
Okay.
I would say the one that I use in its place, I say pressure test.
So corporate
That's
speak.
worse.
I like pressure tests.
Okay, if it's corporate speak, that makes sense. I hate corporate speak. I'm what you call a no-caller.
Really?
I'm on the no-caller tribe.
Oh, great.
Ryan, I do believe that your TPS report cover page is not up to date.
What is it that you say you do here,
What is-
Ryan?
That's what I get asked every day.
Yeah, Katura, if you could make a correct move and trust someone, that'd be great.
Josh, best player?
It's got to be D. I would like to give a couple of honorable mentions. Obviously, Austin. But then, I think if the season laid out just a little bit differently, people like Emily and Caleb could have made a lot bigger splashes. Emily made a pretty big splash, so I would like to give the two of them an honorable mention as well.
Okay. Worst player of the season. Derek, who do you got?
Bruce, mostly because they literally celebrated his departure. Gleefully. It was way too much of a party. It might also be the single reason that Emily got voted out was because she celebrated Bruce's downfall too hard.
Bragged a little too hard.
So it was down to Katura and Bruce, but I mean, ultimately Katura had good relationships with everybody, and she was, of course, Alex being the person making the wrong moves, but I mean, having a good social game is the bedrock to doing anything in Survivor, and it seems like Bruce really didn't have that. And he wanted to make a lot of wrong moves, and he went home with an idol in his pocket, even though he knew he was a target. So, the mounting evidence against Bruce is insurmountable.
Josh?
The only two options, I think, are Katura and Bruce. I kind of want to also toss Sifu out there, but, he's too far long gone there. I'm going to go with Bruce here. Like Derek said, nail in the coffin is that people celebrated when you got voted out. And also, you should have been going to Final Tribal Council, and yet you still got 8th place because people just wanted you out of the game. Come on, man.
You were so bad at being a goat that you got knocked out early. Oh, no. I hadn't thought about that.
So it's Katura and Bruce. I'm actually going to get mine to Katura. And my main reasoning is because she was too focused on Bruce. She was hyper-focused on, the wrong thing instead of, you should take him to the end. And, it's almost like I would expect better from Katura than Bruce. and the fact that Katura kept, sabotaging Bello. And it was all about Bello, but she was the worst offender. Basically kind of handing the game to Reba. I think Katura's most at fault for the complete self-destruction of Bello.
I would agree.
What's the meme where the person sticks the stick into their own bike
the
wheel
bike.
spokes? The bike is Bello. Katura's on the bike, and she's sticking the stick into the spokes every time. And then she falls over and goes, oh, what the heck?
Exactly. Derek, did you have anything for Jeff Watch?
Not particularly. One thing I want to acknowledge, and this is not really including On Fire, just on-screen Jeff, or what we saw on screen, I do believe we took a step back toward a more pure version of Survivor this season. Whatever role he had in selecting all of the endurance challenges, I know that you're not a fan of seeing that many, but I loved it.
So repetitive.
But they're not repetitive.
Stylistically, I think they are.
I liked the step mechanically that we took in the game this season. Whatever Jeff's role was in that, I want to give him credit for it. But he has definitely leaned into Survivor being an experience and not a cutthroat game. I do think that the kind of people who apply nowadays, that it fits that personality better. But that said, I would still like to see, like, dart throwing at a map and pick a random person from all over the United States, like random number generator. I like that, like you've said before, Ryan. So that's all I have for Jeff Wash.
Have a weather report? Anything?
There really wasn't much. Did we have some rain at the beginning? I don't even remember. I honestly,
there's a little bit, but
there's not much. Not bad, not hard.
And last real thing we got to talk about for social media, Josh is our memorability consultant. We always check in with him in the rewinds to see what the most memorable moment of the season is.
As well as I can.
45, it's a little different, but I just, what would you think is going to be? Like, as of right now, what do you think the most memorable moment of the season is? Derek and I obviously have some input, but Josh, it's your call.
Yeah, I'll definitely lean on you guys and take some nominations, but one's just off the top of my head. You gotta think about the quits here, and I'm just gonna say the two quits. I'm not gonna isolate them, just because that is so rare to happen on a season of Survivor. Otherwise, I think it's just like more larger storylines that develop, because you have like Emily's big development as a character. You have the ongoing conflict between Couture and Bruce. Ultimately, the really, really, really big one is finally having a payoff for Shot in the Dark. And I think that might end up being the one.
So Caleb Shot in the Dark, I think, is a big one. Kelly's Blindside is a big one, but I think you're missing the biggest one. Playing with the boys. I think the Top Gun montage sequence is my number one.
That's a good nomination.
There are a lot of really fun moments. Like, just another honorable mention. I'm going to remember, because of that challenge, every time I see it, everyone who's ever kicked over that challenge, which is Michelle twice, and now Austin's there. And even Jake, he kicked over what he built, because you have to kick it over.
He didn't deserve to kick it.
My nomination was also the correct vote nullification with the Shot in the Dark, because that's a record. So when you talk about multiple votes getting nullified by some advantage or an idol, Caleb will forever be in the conversation, or at least for the foreseeable future, because it was like 12 or I guess it was 11,
and the first ever for Shot in the Dark.
Yeah, so it was 11. It was successful, and for as long as Shot in the Dark is here, it's almost impossible to have it work out better. So that was my number one.
Austin didn't vote in that one, so technically I think it is possible.
Right? So yeah. If we merge at 13, there's room, but not much.
Final answer, Josh.
I think I'm gonna go with Shot in the Dark.
Okay. I can respect it.
But I do like both Kelly's Blindside and Playing with the Boys.
Yes, the Kelly Loggins, or
Kelly Loggins.
Sorry, Kelly Loggins.
Kenny Loggins, the Kenny Loggins appearance.
And especially since we get 3 boys' nights here.
3 boys' nights. Last thing we need to do and make it quick, please, social media.
Yeah, you can follow us, as always, on Instagram and Twitter at Castaway Pod, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. We post some videos on there if you want to see our beautiful faces. Hello. You can follow us there, which is just Castaway Consultants. We have a website, which is thecastawayconsultants.com, where we post all of our episodes that are easy to search, and Ryan's blogs. They are very wonderful.
And the question I'm going to be posting on Spotify for the response is going to be, what is your favorite season from the new era? The options are obviously going to be 41 through 45. We have our feelings here, but we want to hear from you guys on that. I may post a short answer, I may not, but last thing, just thanks to the fans. This was our biggest and most successful season yet. We say it all the time, but we don't say it enough because you can't. You guys are the best listeners because you listen to us, and we put this out there for you. Ryan puts in a lot of hard work. Short round of applause or snaps for Ryan for editing again this season. Thank you, Ryan. You don't have to, but we appreciate that you do, and we get to sound crispier than a lot of other competitor podcasts as a result.
Truth.
So send some love for Ryan in the comments or in a review if you want to acknowledge him for that. other than that, I've got nothing else, and I'm ready to put a bow on it.
Yep. And last thing, just a reminder. Season's done. So we take a couple weeks off here for the holidays, and then like the first week of January, I think, like the 3rd or 4th or something like that, I'll release the first of our Rewind series for Kageon. That's a 2-parter, and those will be every 2 weeks, we think, until season 46 starts.
Yeah, we might only get one season because I think they said the last week of February is when 46 premieres, which is earlier than usual.
I don't know. We'll look at it, but that's the plan right now. And then once we get back from Christmas break and stuff in January, we're going to start San Juan del Sur season 29. So we'll get into that. In the meantime, this has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.